Last year there was a property tax relief bill that was passed. Can you kind of dive into a little bit of that, which you do know is a little convoluted and a little confusing for a lot of people?
Yeah, it was confusing for a lot of people. Yes, the property tax relief bill is also called SB2, passed in 2023, with really three main points of emphasis when it comes to property taxes. First one being an adjustment on the homestead exemption and the value deduction there. Second one being they're calling it a circuit breaker, which is really a cap on the amount of taxable increase from one year to the next. And the third is an ISD rate compression. Um, the homestead exemption part, essentially they're changing the amount of value deduction on a homestead exemption from 40,000 to 100,000. So that was actually seen as a very big relief for a lot of people immediately. And I think that's why it received part of the positive reception that it did immediately. The next part, the circuit breaker portion, essentially says that if you are a property that is valued at 5 million or less in 2024, can only be increased in value by 20%. That's a cap, so to speak, from one year to the next. Those two, in my opinion, kind of offset each other as far as what they're going to do in the long run, but they were both something that people could kind of grasp and understand immediately, and thought that this was a good bill.
Yeah, I mean, each point of it has pluses and minuses to some extent. I mean, maybe not the homestead exemption. I think that one's just a total positive of increasing the amount reduced from your value before they apply the tax rate to it. Right, changed from 40,000 to 100,000. That just saved people $1,000 on their tax bill right there. Just everybody. The circuit breaker thing, which was much touted at the time, amounts to an appraisal cap on all property, basically. I mean, the vast majority of properties in Texas are under $5 million. And so it's just a blanket appraisal cap. And it exclusively falls on investment properties. So, it's kind of a mixed bag. It was a response to a couple of years in a row that we had between 2021 and 2023 of dramatic 30 to 40% year over year increases each year. And I understand, like, that was rough on everybody. It was rough on us. It was rough on our clients. It was, nobody wants to live in that environment. And so I understand why that was the response to it. Is it a long-term good idea? I don't think so. Has a lot of downstream ripple effects with regard to the economy and housing prices and the whole housing market.
And 20% is still a lot to increase.
Still a lot.
And the county gets to do whatever they want with the market value.
Yes, that's
right. And so they can increase your market value 40%.
Well, they have to increase it to whatever the market dictates. Like, they have to keep it congruent with market fluctuations.
Right.
Ultimately.
So, and then you're capped at 20%. So if they increase it 30% and it's capped 20%, and say you go and try to protest, it only drops down 7-8%.
Yeah, you're already saving that money basically, with that cap, which is a good thing for the property owner. The ISD rate compression was pretty ingenious. We had a dramatic, pretty sizable state budget surplus of, I think, $17 or $18 billion. And they decided to take, I think, pretty close to half of that and throw it at buying down people's property tax bills. And so they went to all the school districts and said, we're going to offset the cost of you lowering your maintenance and operations tax rate by basically just under 10.7 cents per $100 of value. Anyway, what it amounts to is that chunk of money dedicated to that paid for a large amount of school district operations instead of tax bills doing it. So tax bills were lowered by a concurrent amount. So yeah, I mean, there are a couple of other functions to the relief bill with franchise tax and a couple other things that property owners don't worry about so much. Overall, it was a net positive. the 3-year pilot program was the circuit breaker only. The rest of it is in effect in perpetuity. But we'll see how that circuit breaker thing works out over time. It's supposed to sunset after 3 years. This year we saw a pretty flat market climate from last year, so there weren't a lot of increases that met that threshold. We saw a lot of values that rolled or values that decreased, and so there weren't a lot of properties that hit that 20% cap. So we still have yet to see how it really affects things.